Yeah, you know what? I think that it's a lot less about the spending price tags and a lot more about spending priorities. And I think what you're seeing is a stark contrast between the Conservatives' singular focus on corporate tax cuts and also on their kind of dated view of what family looks like. And by contrast, you see the Liberals who are putting forward policies, programs, and priorities that are really relevant to Canadians. How am I going to get my kids through school? How is the sandwich generation going to care for our elderly and aging families? They're bigger, broader, more inclusive policies. And what we continue to see from the Conservatives is this partisan political calculus that benefits some while isolating others. Yeah, you know, I think that there's a few points of view on this. The first one is it's a relatively superficial analysis to consider today that it had nothing to do with vote splitting based on the final election result. To really look at the numbers, you have to track them over the course of the campaign. 3 weeks in, we were virtually neck and neck with the Conservatives in Ontario. If those numbers had held, then we would have prevented the majority. But the NDP surge did spill over into Ontario to a certain degree, and we saw some seats open up to the Conservatives. We saw some backlash move to the NDP, and certainly we saw some chewing on both sides of the coin. But you did ask about impressions, and I think some other impressions that we saw in polling post-debate were Andrea Horwath really winning that likability factor. So, you know, Ontarians really felt that they could connect with her. At the same time, though, you have to ask yourself, is the person that you want to have a beer with the same person that you want to run the province? Mr. Harper is treating this election like a giant personal inconvenience. He's restricting the media, he's restricting access from Canadians, and now he's actually kicking people out of rallies because they disagree with his views. Since when is democracy out of touch with Canadians in the sense that you have to ask Canadians, listen, if you're not in tune with my politics, with my point of view, then you're ousted from the dialogue. This is what we're getting from Harper, it's what we're getting from the Conservative Party, and it certainly has been the tone of this election campaign so far. You know, Hudak had a moment in the course of the debate where he spoke about his daughter. It was probably the most humanizing moment of the debate for him, because I think he really runs the risk of being a bit of the attack dog. Other than that, though, and the polls showed, he didn't really connect with voters. Hello, Tiger. He needs to say something more than this is just a private matter. The fact of the matter is he is in the public eye. It is not private any longer. He is not going to get out of this scandal until he has something to say. Police reports are going to go public, and at that time he's going to have to respond. He would have been far better to come out ahead of this issue instead of getting trapped behind it. You know, I think that early on, a lot of voters would have been concerned about the academic persona that had been put forward for Dion. We saw him carting along a backpack, but they've really tried to trendy up his image with his glasses, and I think when it comes down to it, Dion is probably the choice in terms of likability and approachability for voters in this campaign.
Well, that sounds mighty familiar to attack ads that are currently rolling around. Amanda, don't you think it's time the Liberals invented a new boogeyman to throw at the Conservatives? That seems so 7, 8 years ago.
That sounds like a question from the Conservative playbook. I think you're spending too much time with our friend Walter, Dunn. Listen, if I was the Conservative Party, I'd want to be staying away from this issue too. But the fact of the matter is, healthcare remains, has been, always will be the #1 issue concerning Canadians. It was the #1 issue in 2004, and it certainly is the #1 issue. It is so 2011. It is so not 7 or 8 years ago. So I think that what the Liberal ads are trying to convey is something really critical, really important. The Harper government had 5 years to make some foundational, sustainable change to universal access. They failed to do that. They've spent the election campaign talking about issues like prisons and fighter jets, and all we're saying is that there is too much at stake, the risks are too high, and healthcare is the first and most important issue facing families today.
All right, well, Don,